Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. If I were to hand you an extra 5 hours for you to do whatever you'd like to do this week, what would you do with it? What if I told you that you could get those 5 hours in your schedule each week? Not by working harder, but by actually doing less. That's what I'm going to be talking about in today's episode. Today's episode is called The Stop Doing List, Why Subtracting May Be Your Most Productive Move. So there is a leadership trap that we all experience. I was just talking about it yesterday with someone about the fact that when you step up into a leadership role, often once folks identify what strengths you may have, you tend to be invited to lead other things. And it seems like an endless cycle. Anything you become involved with in any capacity, you're asked to take the lead on something, take the lead on a project, take the lead on a task, and it very quickly compounds until you have way too much on your plate to do any of those things well. So it's more meetings, there's more systems, you're adding more goals all the time. All of these things build up and it leads to burnout and to less effectiveness. So what we're going to be talking about today is the stop doing list. So we tend to think that if we do more, if we work really hard, we do more and get caught up, things will get easier. Let me tell you, I've been working really hard for a really long time, and I've never gotten to a point where the list said 0. It's kind of a joke with the people around me about what my number is that day. It's really how many tasks are left on Proof Hub. And it's an exciting day when I can get that number below 100. To a lot of people, that sounds really overwhelming to think there's 100 tasks on there. But anytime anything pops into my head that I need to do for any project, both personal or professional, I tend to add it to the list. I'm realizing now that I say that, it's not really all the personal stuff. It's usually if it has something to do with school. So if it's getting supplies for Caleb's school or signing him up for a sport, maybe it'll make the list. But it's mostly for work. That list can get really, really long. And for a long time, I let it overwhelm me. I was very frustrated that it seemed like I would do 20, 25 tasks, but while I was working on those tasks, I would get 40 emails and I'd feel like I didn't really make any progress. Well, I realized I needed to think about things a little bit differently. Of course, I shouldn't be obsessing over that number. However, when I get it pretty low on some days, I feel good about myself. But I realized I didn't need to focus on doing more. I needed to focus on removing the things that weren't really serving me well. And so when I say that, I mean the things that really aren't in alignment with what my goals are. So that's how you have to figure out what to let go of. I'm sure as you are listening to this, you're thinking, there is nothing on my list I can let go of. If it's on my list, it has to be done. So in order to really start working towards a stop doing list, you have to be very intentional about eliminating any commitments, tasks, habits, anything that no longer serves your goals. It's not about doing nothing. It's about clearing the space out for what matters most in your life. And I keep saying the word goals. So it has to fit your goals. I've done episodes in the past about goal setting and my approach for setting goals and kind of hinted towards some of the things that I do in workshops and trainings in relation to Full Focus program and other different programs that I teach. But if you don't have any specific goals you're working towards, how are you able to determine what's important to you? And I'm talking about in your personal life too. So what is your actual vision for your future, both personally and professionally? You have to have a clear picture of what you're trying to achieve to determine whether or not the things on your list are in alignment. And if they're not, then you are going to have to move them to the stop doing list. So I want to take you through some categories of things that might help you think about what you can stop doing in your life. So, one thing you could stop doing are any of the tasks that don't really require your unique experience that you have. So, for example, a task that I would never be able to give away on my list is the planning of the curriculum that I teach. That is something that is very important to me, that I craft it in a way that I think is going to be engaging from start to finish, that I'm very strategic about the order in which I cover different things. I really have to have control over my curriculum. That's so important. And I believe that my unique experience is what makes that a piece of my list that can't disappear. But there are things on my list, like scheduling appointments on my calendar, that I realized if I can actually help someone to understand how I go about fitting the things into my day and determining what I can take on and can't take on, someone else can do that and understand without my support. So Erica has done that for over a year now. And I basically had to explain to her what an ideal day looked like. And then she uses that as a filter so she can make those decisions. That is something I used to really dig my fingernails into and didn't want to let go of. I didn't want to use a calendar like Calendly and let people sign up for slots because it's too complex. I'm in too many different states. I have to have travel time. Some stuff is virtual, some is in person. It's just very complicated. So instead, I found someone that I could explain my system to, and she's able to do that. But I don't believe that I could explain my system for creating curriculum and the process I go through and writing an outline and then taking the outline and organizing it in the order that makes sense and then creating the PowerPoint and then going through the PowerPoint and moving stuff around. And then how long will each segment take and estimating based on how long I'm letting people discuss different topics, or this activity takes a certain amount of time. There is a very lengthy process that takes place as I build out my curriculum. I don't really want to explain that to anyone else. That's something I really enjoy and something I will continue to do. So you can see the difference between the two. One takes a unique experience to really be able to do it the way that I want it done. And another one just takes explaining it to someone else, and then they can have the skill set to do it. So I'm sure that there are things on your list that doesn't require your unique experiences or strengths. Now, you might say, well, I don't really have anyone to take anything off my plate. Maybe you don't have a teammate to take something off your plate, so you're wearing all the hats. Believe me, I functioned that way for almost 4 years, and it's a lot of hats to wear. But that's when you have to start looking for solutions where you can automate things. Is it something that can be automated for you? Is it something that AI can help you with? Really look at other tools and resources you have to determine, is there a way I can do this more efficiently or effectively than doing it the way that I've always done it? So that's one thing that you would want to consider as you're looking at the things in your calendar, in your typical week, to determine, is this something that requires my unique experience? Also, you might want to look at the meetings on your calendar. Are the meetings things that actually impact you? So a lot of times we find ourselves on meeting invites and we don't really know that they have a clear purpose or outcomes that relate to what we are trying to achieve. Many, many times I hear people say, I sit through meetings all day. I don't get anything out of them. There's nothing in that meeting that applies to me. Have you ever had the discussion of there's never anything in this meeting that applies to me? Can you voice that concern and say, I should be coming to meetings that impact my role, and these are the types of things I need to be a part of, but maybe we need to revisit what meetings you're actually sitting in on. Can they use AI and record the meeting and then you get a summary so you have the key information if you need to access it later, so you don't have to sit through that meeting with people who are actually involved in it? So meetings without a clear purpose or outcome, that should go on your stop doing list. Thinking about clients or projects that just really drain your energy or don't bring a lot of value to you. So we've all experienced those clients or projects where you walk away just feeling totally drained. You have nothing left. Whether they're not in alignment because of a personality conflict or you just don't share the same vision, you really have to, especially if you are a business owner and you are deciding what clients you're going to choose to work with and you do have control over that, you really need a clear picture of what is that ideal? What are the things that actually energize me versus the things that drain me, and use that as a filter. So as you take on a project, is this something that's going to drain me? Because if so, then it is something I'm going to stop doing. I will stop taking clients that blank, right? Really think that through. Projects. I will stop taking projects that blank. When it comes to the workplace and collaborating with others on projects, there might be certain aspects of the project that don't really align with what you do well or what you enjoy. I just did another Working Genius session this week with a team, and we spent a lot of time talking about the different types of tasks that energize them versus drain them. And typically, some of the things that drain you really energize someone else on the team. And once you start having open conversation, you might find you can collaborate on some of those things and it'll take some weight off your shoulders. Or you can have a conversation about what tools you could use that you need to have in place in order to do it with less of a drain, to be able to get through it more efficiently, without the overwhelm or without the negative feelings toward it. There are also sometimes some habits that might slow us down. For example, over-explaining. Are you someone that tends to over-explain things, give more information than people need? You think that's being helpful, but it ends up being too much for them to sift through and process, and it takes more time from you in the process, but it's not totally necessary. Or micromanaging, when you really need to empower teammates to make decisions on their own. You're micromanaging, so it's taking more time out of your schedule. Any other personal commitments that you have that you're kind of doing out of habit or out of guilt because you feel like you have to, you've done it for so long, not because you're passionate about it, not because it's a priority and it aligns with your life goals, but those personal commitments, you really could take the time to go through and identify, am I doing it because I want to do it? Or am I doing it because I feel guilty if I'm not? And what does it look like to have a happy medium? Do you have to quit completely? Can you go once a month instead of every weekend? Really analyzing the things on your calendar to ensure it's in alignment with what's actually giving you energy rather than draining you. So really what I think you should do in order to start to pull some of these things out is just do an audit of your calendar. Hopefully you are keeping a digital calendar or a paper calendar and really tracking the things that you're doing over time. If so, that makes it so easy to pull it out and to take a look. Maybe at the last 2 to 4 weeks would probably be helpful. And ask yourself, if I stop doing this, what's the worst thing that could happen? If I stop doing this one thing right here in front of me, what is the worst thing that can happen? And I would say you will probably quickly come up with things that really you don't need to be doing anymore. As soon as you identify that something is a low value activity, you're going to focus on pulling those out. Make a list of them. What are the energy draining or low return items on your list that you're not getting ROI on? And start slowly over time removing those things from your schedule. Even if it starts with one meeting that you always go to, that's 30 minutes every week, and you know you don't get anything from it. Let's really focus on how can we get that removed from our schedule. What can we do? I gave the example of using AI, so it generates a summary and you have the notes you need, but you don't have to be a part of it. And that's not because it's a boring meeting and you just don't want to go to it. I'm saying if it truly doesn't apply to you, it doesn't impact you, you don't need to be a voice in the room. So that's not every meeting that you find to be boring and you don't like the way someone facilitates it. It truly doesn't pertain to you. So think of this as like a living, breathing document that over time you can continue to add things to so you can keep removing things from your schedule. I did slowly start to do that. And I mean, slowly. It does take time. It's not overnight, but I started to kind of pick at some of the things on my schedule that I felt like I was overdoing, or, I wasn't getting a lot of value out of different activities that I had been choosing to do for a long time. I invested time, wasn't really seeing a difference, so I chose to remove them. If you can really start to analyze things, I think you'll realize there's more of that stuff than you realize. So I started the episode by saying, if I gave you 5 hours, next week, what would you do with it? I am very curious about that, because if you remove all of these extra things that really don't align for you, you might have more time than you realize. You might reach 5 hours very quickly. There are a lot of hours in a week. So I think that that starts to make a ripple effect. It's going to give you more time for strategic thinking. So every moment that you can free up from, pulling the things out that don't align with your goals, you get to spend more time actually thinking about your goals and making sure that your behaviors are going to lead to success, whatever that looks like for you. If you are removing things from your list and you are now delegating those or sharing them with other people, it's going to increase that ownership across folks in your team. It's going to improve trust between you and the other people. If you are someone who maybe does a little bit of micromanaging just because maybe you have perfectionist tendencies and you just don't feel someone can do it like you, imagine the time you would get back if you started to give up a little bit of that control and let someone try it out and give them feedback and let them learn over time so that they're comfortable doing it and they can get similar results. It's also just going to give you more energy, more mental clarity. So I wanted to share, because I always do a leadership in the wild, I wanted to share an example of this. So my leadership in the wild this week is actually Jocelyn Melton. She's of Baxter Environmental Group. She's in my BNI group. Amazing person, amazing friend. Very passionate about everything that she does and very goal-driven. And when I say very goal-driven, I mean tons of goals, a lot of goals, spreadsheets of goals, which I love because I'm very goal-oriented as well. But I remember talking to her before about the number of goals she has, and even me being so goal focused, I was overwhelmed by the list. Like, I wouldn't even know where to begin. She amazes me. I don't know how she could focus on so many things at the same time. That's the way she functions, and she is so successful and really has a major impact on her business, on her community, on her friends, family. She amazes me. She was doing it. She was excelling at it. But I also know it was draining her. And the reason I'm choosing to highlight her this week is that she actually stated that she has narrowed her focus down to 5 things. And as she made decisions about those 5 things that were most important to her, it really helped her to kind of free up the mental space that she needed to really get the most important things done. But one example of something that she removed was, she said, I made a commitment to myself that I'm not doing in-person networking anymore. I'm going to do virtual networking. And so, when I stopped and thought about that, and I think about the amount of networking I do, for example, if I set that boundary and said, you know what, it really drains me to go do these in-person events. There's the travel time to it. There's the time at it. There's the travel time back. And it's just an energy drainer because I'm an introvert. Say I said that, for example. And I am going to choose to move forward with, in the future, anytime someone asks to have a one-to-one, I'm going to say, I would love to have a one-to-one, but I only do virtual one-to-ones. Would you like to set up a meeting? Just one example of a meeting. So instead of going and having a 45-minute one-to-one where I have a 30-minute drive there, 45-minute one-to-one might go over, 30-minute drive back, and then have to refocus. Now think about, I can be working on something right up to the moment that I get on that 30-minute call. I have a clear boundary of my hard stop time. I get off my call and get right back to work. think about the time that she is saving. So that one decision that she made and she shared out with folks, she's very open and honest. I know that she doesn't care that I'm sharing this. She was able to remove so much from her schedule that it's freeing her up to do the things that are more important to her and are truly aligned with her goals. So I just thought that was the perfect example, and I want to highlight her as a leader because she has such a great impact on all the people around her. Everybody that she meets, she's having a positive impact on, whether she realizes it or not. But that one simple tip she shared the other day with the group, you could just see people's, gears turning. Like, what is that thing that I can just make a small shift on, a small decision, set the boundary, and then it's going to free me up to do other things. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Jocelyn for really, giving herself the time to analyze and reflect on what's important and what is energizing her, and start to focus on that stop doing list and think about what can be removed. That's really what inspired this episode. I didn't know what I wanted to share this week. And then after I've kind of seen her in action recently, and she shared her great success of this the other day, I thought, that's something worth celebrating. So something else that I've been doing in season 2 is Leadership Unscripted. So if you are a past listener, you know that these are listener submitted scenarios or challenges that I typically, with a guest, would go over, read what the scenario is, and then we just talk about some strategies to possibly overcome the challenge. Well, I'm solo today, but I did pull one of the scenarios. It actually semi-aligns with what we're talking about today. So I thought I would share that with you and unpack some ideas I had for the listener. So these are always anonymous, so I don't have a name, but I will read to you what the scenario says. I can't seem to get my own work done because my team comes to me with every little question. I want to be available, but it's draining my productivity. How do I balance being supportive with actually getting my own priorities done? I have a feeling a lot of people experience this. So as I thought about it, the first thing that came to mind is something I've seen a lot of my clients have success with. And it's the idea of creating an office hours kind of scenario, really identifying designated times in your schedule that you might be able to set aside as this is like my open door time. You can walk in and ask questions you have or schedule a time with me during this time frame, rather than just answering ad hoc all day and having constant distraction and then trying to refocus on your stuff. You could have designated times that the team is familiar with, and they can plan and schedule their day around if they need to see you or not. That was the first thing that came to mind for me. Another thing that I've seen done well is establishing, say it's a 15-minute rule, that you don't want people to come to you with questions until they've tried it for a certain amount of time themselves, or maybe a certain number of times. That's true too. But I actually did this with my students in the classroom. I did an amount of time and a number of people. I would always tell the kids, ask 3 before me, because chances are there was another student in the classroom that could help them. And if the other student was having the opportunity to explain it to them, it was further embedding the knowledge in them. But it was helping them to see the resources around them. So they might spend 2 minutes on it themselves. They're not figuring it out. So they might lean over to a neighbor and ask them, or ask the person across from them. Ask someone nearby, or look at a resource. And if you truly can't find the answer, then come to me. And so it just really helped them to become more resourceful. And I felt like they were asking a lot less questions, because rather than asking their friends, they'd take the time to actually try it the first time, and I wasn't becoming a crutch for them. I think the same thing really does apply with adults, really giving them an amount of time that would be appropriate to try it themselves. And if you're really hitting a wall, come to me, or, really having them think about when they do come to you, asking questions instead of just giving the answer. Like, I don't know, what would you try first? What have you already tried? What are you thinking? So that you are getting them to think about the questions you're going to ask them. So they start asking themselves those questions rather than requiring you to do it. So you're kind of like training them to think through, what are the questions I can be asking where I don't need to go visit them, because it helps me, it guides me to the answer that I need. Let's see, what else? So they said, I want to be available, but it's draining. I was thinking, what about the parking lot? So me and my clients typically use a parking lot when we're having bigger group activities. And if someone has a question, we might put it in the parking lot to come back to later so that it's not forgotten, it's captured somewhere. I was almost thinking, like, what if there was a Google Doc that's just a live doc that serves as a parking lot. So if you have a question that you need support with, you've already tried it on your own and maybe checked your resources, and it can wait, it's not urgent, you could drop it in the parking lot, and then that supervisor, that boss, whoever it is, that you would be asking the question to, would have access to that document where everybody's dropping their questions, and maybe has a set time of day, maybe once in the morning and once in the afternoon, where they hop in there and they can either write answers directly in it, or, shoot an email, pick up the phone and call them. It doesn't matter, but it's all in one place so that when time permits, they can get to that list. That was something I was thinking too, that we could really carry over from a workshop format to just a live doc that gets updated over time with questions. So that's something that came to mind too. And then finally, I would just say modeling, protecting your time. We use do not disturb on our phones a lot, or at least I do a lot when I'm trying to focus and really program my phone to know my typical routines and what notifications I want to be able to come through at specific times. I see some great systems in the organizations that I go to of, a sign on the door that you slide to do not disturb, or, open, come on in, or whatever specifically tells you what that person's doing and whether they are available for questions. So if you really want that to kind of become the mindset, if you're struggling with people coming to you, other people might be as well. So maybe talking about, as a team, what are some possible solutions, of visuals, for example, that we could come up with so people know when you're maybe in deep focus time and you don't want to be distracted, versus when you're doing some admin stuff that maybe doesn't take a lot of thought, and you'd be okay if someone stepped in and asked a quick question. So those are some of the ideas I had. I hope that's helpful to the listener. Some of those I've definitely seen work for my clients in the past. Some of them I just came up with and think might be worth a shot. So in today's episode, in talking about really trying to remove things from our schedule, instead of saying yes to everything, trying to please everyone, and I say that with a smile because, believe me, I've tried to do that a lot over the years, and it's always a work in progress. Stop adding things to your list and start thinking about what can be removed, because the more you remove, the more time that you have to really process what your real goals are, what you're working towards, and you can fill it with things that are actually filling your cup instead of draining you. So my challenge for you this week is to do an audit of your calendar, of your task list. It doesn't matter which one you use. Look at the last 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't care the exact amount of time, but see if you can find a couple of things that really don't need to be on your list, that if you stop doing them, everything wouldn't come crashing down around you. And don't rule that out as a possibility before completing the exercise, because before I did it, I definitely thought that everything on my calendar was important. And I'll tell you, I've removed a lot of things and found a lot more time in my schedule by doing it. So that's my challenge to you, is to sit down, go through that process. The time that it takes to go through the process, it might take, say, 15, 30 minutes. You'll quickly get that time back as you start removing things, and you'll get so much more. So I hope that you found that to be helpful. This episode really was, again, inspired by Jocelyn Melton and kind of her big win that she had shared this week by removing so many things, what it has done for her, and the freedom to do the things that she loves so much more. Hope you found value in today's episode. If you know someone who has a little bit too much on their plate and might benefit from a stop doing list instead of that checklist that they're used to, be sure to share it. If you are not subscribed to the episodes and you want those notifications every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time that a new episode has dropped, be sure to follow, subscribe on wherever you listen to your podcasts. As always, I will invite you to shoot us a message at info@branchingoutpodcast.com. You can email a question, a scenario that you'd like us to cover, or if you want to be a guest on the podcast, you can go to branchingoutpodcast.com and submit a guest application. I'm really excited about some of the upcoming guests, and I hope you guys are too. Thank you to our loyal listeners. I know there are a lot of you out there that are listening every single week, and I love that. I love your feedback and hearing how you're using the information from these podcasts to actually make changes in your life. That's what it's all about. I really want these episodes to be something that can resonate with everyone so you can apply leadership skills to everyday life. And until next time, keep branching out.